fantasy players were so pissed off. No, the year before, because Todd Gurley was in a blowout game with the Rams. He was running down for a touchdown right as the clock was about to expire. And then just to like let the clock run out, he just purposely went down in front of the end zone and didn't score the touchdown. And
Oh,
now this
yeah.
time for the the Falcons, that's what he tries to do and needs to do to win, but fails.
Well,
Yeah, I remember that.
I wonder how many fantasy players this weekend were like ecstatic that he made that mistake, and I'm sure there are people out there that won their matchup because of that touchdown.
Oh, 100%. If you're the Todd Gurley owner and you know that's what they're doing, then you're like, oh, great. He's gonna he's actually trying to not score the touchdown. There's no way I'm gonna get the one I need, and then he accidentally does.
Yeah,
That's great. That's hilarious.
he made a lot of people happy.
Yeah, but the Falcons, yeah, I mean, I think they're better with Dan Quinn. I think it was a good firing. I mean, it seems the way and they're also benefiting from like they've gotten Julio Jones back, who's played well. Todd Gurley really did. Besides the accidental touchdown, I mean, counting that, he's playing actually really good football. Watching the game, I felt like this week, like he looks like old Todd Gurley this week to me, but none of that helped the Falcons get a win when they needed it.
Yeah, too good.
Being good.
Too good.
He was too good for the Falcons.
Yeah.
I know. Have you guys ever seen a game where it ended like that? Anything like that?
I've never seen a game personally. It's weird because that's like it's kind of a controversial strategy where it's like for on the Lions side to like let them score, like, but yeah, because you're like, man, you never want to let someone score, but that's such a weird situation to be in, and but in this day and age, with the offense the way it is, it's like I think that's a very viable strategy where it's like, all right, go ahead and score. We want as much clock as possible when we get the ball back, and let's go win, especially on that side of the field.
You might not remember this, Austin, but early on when I was just really starting to get into the NFL, I think I had a conversation with you and Josh in a game where it was kind of similar, but they didn't take the strategy. And I said something to the effect of like, wouldn't it be better if they just like let him into the end zone? And yeah, you kind of said what you're debating now. Like, no, there's never a guarantee of scoring. Like, you want to just, stop the score. But yeah, I guess you're right I think you're right. The development of offenses and how the game works, and that it makes a lot of sense in a lot of scenarios to just let them in.
Yeah, especially when you got a serviceable, well, I would even say a great fourth quarter quarterback in Matt Stafford. If it was Sam Darnold in that situation, it's like, well, yeah. I don't know. You should probably try and stop them from scoring and hope they miss the field goal. But yeah, but yeah, in most cases, I think most quarterbacks, you're like, all right, we just want the offense out there now. That happened in the 2013 game with the Cowboys and the Broncos, Peyton Manning versus Romo.
Famous.
They got into a situation where I like that, and I was like, and I think it was, I can't remember who was commentating that game, but they were like, should they let them score? Because there was like a first down that they still could get to run the clock out. If they would have, I think they talked about the 11. There was still a first down they could get, and they could run the clock out. And it's like, maybe they should just let them score so that Romo can get the ball back but they got the first down and they were able to just drain the clock and win. And that was after Romo threw that interception. So, I mean, it is a viable strategy even back then. So, good for the Lions that happened to them so that Matt Stafford had a chance.
And now I heard that before that play happened, both teams were on the same page. Like, Atlanta knew that they were trying to not score, and the Lions knew that they were trying to not score, so they were trying to let them in.
Yeah.
Um,
It's such a
so
weird image. I think people were wondering if it's going to be iconic with Todd Gurley laying in the end zone and three Lions players going like he is. Like, that's going to be an iconic image, man.
Well,
yeah,
that was the thing too. Is he barely had the ball over the line, so those Lions players were like arguing with the refs. Like he scored, dude. Review it. He scored.
oh,
Like when have you
so
ever seen that in football?
never. Oh my gosh,
You
so
know what
funny.
else
He
is?
just. Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom. No, I was just gonna say you could see Todd Gurley when he was coming up to the end zone. He tried to
Yeah.
stop, but his momentum just carried him into it. So it was
Well, that's the
funny to
thing.
watch.
I think he knew what the plan was, but he didn't decide, oh, I should stop until it was way too late. So he like forgot the plan. It looked like he almost like lost like his balance or something trying to get past that last defender, but I still think he had more than enough space to stop even then.
That it speaks well to Gurley, like how conditioned he is, like to run, because like he could have, if as soon as that Lions player made contact with him, he could have just dropped to the ground.
Yeah.
But he was kind of running with a lot of momentum into that defender, and like if he would have just dropped instead of like he kind of was chopping his feet, and
It's not natural
that
for
the
a player
momentum
like
of him carried him into the end zone. So I mean,
Mhm.
it speaks well to Gurley that like, man, I'm gonna fight for those yards. Like it's just ingrained in his DNA, but but it ended up costing the Falcons. So
Well, here's the thing that's bad too, is the day before on Saturday there was a college game where pretty much the exact same thing happened, except the running back was like in the end zone, already scored, and then he realized, oh crap, I shouldn't have scored there. So it's like, obviously Todd Gurley didn't see that highlight and didn't think, wow, that was dumb, because he went and did the exact same thing the next day.
Yeah. Well, irregardless, the Falcons, if their season wasn't already done, which it probably was, it's done now. They're 1-6 in their division.
yeah,
So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens to the Falcons in the offseason. I mean, after getting rid of your head coach, they could be in full rebuilding mode. I'm interested to see if they go as far as trading Matt Ryan, maybe trade Julio. They're big guys and just start rebuild. I don't know.
it sucks because like on paper they're really good.
I know.
It's a weird situation because it's like, well, I mean, they're extremely talented. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, that's one of the best duos in the game. Matt Ryan is a former MVP. He's had a solid 6-7 year stretch in his career, which is more than any other quarterback can say. Lots of quarterbacks. Todd Gurley is looking better and better every week. They've got some guys on defense. They're not very deep on defense, but they've got a few players. So I don't know. It's a weird situation because it's not necessarily the talent. But maybe it's just the culture.
They've lost so many close games. I mean, it's crazy. There's a lot of. I mean, it was against the Dallas Cowboys. If they just pick up that onside kick, now they're elite. They're 2-5. If Todd Gurley doesn't score that touchdown, then they're 3-4.
Yeah, they don't blow a lead to the Bears. They're 4-3.
4-3. Like all of a sudden, we're talking. They're in the hunt for the division. Like it's kind of crazy.
They're ahead of Carolina right now if they win those 3 games.
Those are 3 plays, or 3. At least the first 2 are very clear things that could have changed. That change everything for the Falcons right now. Well, it's pretty wild.
It's hard too because before we were blaming a lot of it on coaching, and maybe we still can blame it on coaching, but I don't know. Is it discipline? Is it game plan? Is it as simple as offense defense? I mean, their offense is good. I think if there's any weak point, it's the defense.
Yeah.
Because they're scoring points, they're staying in games with their offense. I don't know. It really just seems like every game it's a new issue.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, their defense isn't doing them any favors. I mean, they've had the second most points scored on them in the NFC. So, I mean, obviously their defense isn't elite caliber by any stretch, but it just feels like they've been put in positions. It feels like unlucky situations. I mean, to some degree. I mean, I think you can blame coaching somewhat on the onside kick. Like those players could have picked up that ball. Like that's not so much of that's like you guys did that to yourself. Like there's no reason to not do that. But I don't know. I don't think it's that often where there's so obvious pinpoint moments that you can point to exactly where it went wrong.
It's tough when you got an interim head coach. You know, and you're unsure about the future, and a lot of guys are trying to prove themselves. Because at this point, anybody's name's up for grabs for the chopping block or the trading block or anything, and so you got guys that are now maybe just trying to look good on tape at this point, so that they look good for other teams when they get shopped, and you got a head coach or an interim coach trying to prove himself to maybe get the head coaching job next year, like make it official, or get a job next year. And so I don't know. It might just be like a lack of unity. Like it's every man for himself in Atlanta right now, because you never know. You might not be on the team next year.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Okay, but while we're on the subject of the NFC South, I think it's time for me to humble myself and say I was wrong. The Buccaneers are really good. There's not really any way around it right now. The Buccaneers look really, really good. What does this factor into the Belichick-Brady debate? Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 5-2, and I'm pretty sure, the Patriots are almost the inverse. They're 2-4 because they have had their bye. Was it Brady all along? Was Belichick a system coach?
Brady's making a case now.
I think that's the thing. Belichick is a system coach. He creates his own system, but it turns out his systems are extremely reliant on a top-tier quarterback. And so who knows? Maybe they cut Cam, pull something off in the trade window this season, or next season they pick someone else good up, and we're back to the normal Patriots Belichick way. But it's clearly not working with Cam.
Oh, and Tom Brady, it is working. It really is working in Tampa Bay. Like I said, I've been a huge doubter, and the time will come later in this podcast for Austin to admit and confess his issues with the Steelers. So that's why I'm willing to do this as the bigger man to do it first. but the Buccaneers, I mean, it's a huge win coming on the Raiders, coming off of the Raiders' big win over the Chiefs. So, I mean, I feel like that's big for their division, especially since the Raiders were one of the Saints' losses. So for the Buccaneers to have sort of a statement win to beat the team that just beat the proverbial best team in the league, I'm not going to try and hate on the Buccaneers anymore.
Good. Brady's definitely having a better season than Bridgewater. And but yes, I will humble myself, but when we get to that subject. But before we leave the Buccaneers topic, it could all be derailed with a certain signing of a certain Mr. Brown.
AB's over here like, oh baby, look at that locker room.
Another team to ruin. Brady just righted the ship, like they've had 4 penalties in 2 games since the Bears debacle, and they've righted the ship. Everyone's happy. Annihilated the Packers. Annihilated the Raiders. Discipline. Everyone's happy. Brady's happy. Here comes Antonio Brown. Is the Buccaneers culture strong enough for Antonio Brown?
I think that's what it comes down to, is because Tom Brady likes, and they have a relationship. They liked each other when he was on the Patriots for how many weeks that was. Yeah.
A few days.
But they talked positively about each other, and they've obviously maintained a relationship with each other. And wasn't there something where Bruce Arians said it's all on Tom? Like, it's Tom's job to make sure that Antonio Brown stays in line. Pretty sure I read that somewhere.
Bruce Arians has had multiple statements that really clue you in that he didn't want Antonio Brown on the team. And this was an ownership decision.
Definitely. Before the signing, he came out and said it wasn't a fit they were looking at. It didn't look like it would work for them. So you're right. It looks like pressure from Tom. Although he has had comments saying like this wasn't Tom making this happen. Like he didn't force our hand or anything. But
well, here's the thing. I was thinking about this today, and I think, if I were Bruce Arians and knowing what kind of a person he is, I bet it was a Tom. I bet Tom had a lot of voice in the conversation and the debates about it. But Bruce Arians doesn't want to admit that Tom's opinion matters more than his own.
Look, I'll actually... no, go ahead, Tom. So I thought you were done. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and that's one thing I was thinking about. When you're Tom Brady, and there have been other players in the NFL throughout its history that have been in the same situation, but I don't think anyone more like Tom. When Tom decided he didn't want to be a Patriot anymore, like he just, obviously based on what he's achieved in New England, he could go anywhere he wanted to. He could have gone anywhere and gotten any changes he wanted. And I mean, obviously Tampa Bay is the perfect example of it. But it's almost like you can see his foresight in going to Tampa Bay. Because end of last season, when he's looking at teams to go to and when he's trying to decide where he wants to sign, I think he saw the fact that the Bucs have a great defense. They have a ton of talent on the offense. They had some insane stats as an offense last year, but obviously replace what's his face? James Winston.
Yeah.
With Tom Brady, and that was the perfect adjustment. But I think Tom is a player unique from any other, where he can go wherever he wants, he can do whatever he wants, he gets whatever he wants, and obviously it works.
And I'll actually say I actually like the signing though. I don't think Antonio Brown's going to come in here and destroy it. I think his time being ostracized from the league and, serving a suspension, having his name dragged through the mud, I think he is humbled. And I've heard he's done things like, anger management, therapy. He's done the steps. I think he will I think he's going to be a little bit more contrite. I think he knows, I'm not good enough to, just act however I want, and teams are going to put up with it. There's no receiver that's good enough for that. Quarterbacks, maybe, possibly. I mean, not legal stuff like Antonio Brown had, but but anyway. And besides that, I think it's a good decision because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are dealing with injuries with their weapons. I mean, Mike Evans has been banged up a little bit. Chris Godwin, he's on his third injury that's probably going to cost him at least a week or two of the season. So they have a bit of a need as far as talent in that receiving core. That was a big part of getting Tom Brady there. So, and part of it is do I think Antonio Brown's washed up? No, he hasn't been away from the game long enough to think he's not going to still be a great receiver. I'm not saying he'll step back in and automatically be the best receiver in the league, but I think absolutely once he gets integrated into that offense I think he'll be a huge weapon and an asset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think he's washed up. Yeah, I think Bruce Arians has made his role quite clear. So, and yeah, he knows that he's on his last legs. He's got to behave. And then I think he's eligible when they play the Saints. So if they can at least get that game in before something goes awry, and use him to beat the Saints and like really put themselves in the driver's seat to win the division, I think that alone makes it a good signing. Even if he lasts a game, just to beat their division rival that's vying for that spot. So, no, it's not a terrible signing. It's just, get your popcorn ready. I know that's T.O., but AB is like T.O. on steroids. It's like, yeah. So I'm ready to. Buccaneers are fascinating, but if anybody can get somebody in line, it's Brady.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: would you consider, maybe not right now because we haven't seen Antonio play recently, but would you guys consider him to be a top tier deep threat?
Deep threat, sure.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing about Antonio Brown. He's one of the premier route runners of all wide receivers, so he can really play anywhere on the field. So they can use him. They can use him to fill in wherever they need him to.
Yeah.
And I think that'll deal a lot with like Austin said. Like Bruce Arians has made it clear he's there like as the insurance policy for their wideouts. So I mean, if they're missing Chris Godwin, then yeah, he's probably going to be going deep a lot. We'll see. I'm interested to see how they do. They play the Giants this week. I'm not sure if I know I saw something about with COVID protocol. I'm not sure if Antonio Brown is eligible this week or not.
His last week of suspension is
8-game suspension.
Yeah. And it's week 8. So he's not eligible till week 9.
Week 9, which I'm gonna check real quick because I don't have the Buccaneers schedule memorized. Who do they play week 9?
They play the Saints. And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, man, that's a good game to kind of premiere Antonio Brown, and we'll see. It's like, get your popcorn ready. It's going to be exciting on and maybe off the field. They hope just on the field, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But I guess tying that in as Antonio Brown being a former Steeler, I will admit I'm wrong about the Steelers. They've proved it. There's nothing you can say about it. They're a top 3, maybe even 2 team, maybe even 1 team.
They're the only undefeated team left.
They are. And yeah, I was wrong. Totally wrong. I'll admit it.
Yeah. They look good. I mean, the Steelers look good. I think we talked about them at length, so I don't think we need to talk the Steelers to death this week, but that was a big win over the Titans. It was a close game. The Titans, they didn't really lose any notches for me on that loss because it was a close nail biter. I mean, 1 field goal away.
Yeah, 1 missed field goal away. But I think all I want to plug in here is last week we talked about them in depth, and what I believe now still is I think they're probably, them and the Chiefs are the 2 most well-rounded teams, offense and defense, in the league, and they really proved that. They did exactly what they knew they needed to do. They shut down Derrick Henry. I keep spacing everybody's names, but yeah, they shut down his run game and they got a win. He didn't produce that much. It was definitely relying on the rest of the Titans offense to keep him in that game and potentially win it. He did okay. I think he still got like 80, 90 yards, but he didn't break his 100.
Henry standards.
Yeah. He didn't break his 100, and that's obviously all it takes. But one thing, too, that I thought was interesting was Juju Smith-Schuster has kind of been, like, his name hasn't been spoken very much yet this season, but on Sunday he had 14 targets, got 85 yards. So it's interesting to see them integrating him back into the normal receiving core. in the targets. And maybe it's just because he's been guarded so well by teams as one of their biggest receiving threats in previous games. But he did good. He looked like his normal Juju Smith-Schuster self.
Juju does best when he's a clear number 2 or maybe even number 3. And the Steelers benefit from getting Deontay Johnson back, which right now, in my opinion, is actually their number 1 receiver. And you could argue that Chase Claypool might be their number 2, putting Juju at 3. So I think,
they benefit
really
from that.
Yeah. They are. Well, Ben Roethlisberger is just playing great, and he'll get the ball to whoever's open. And I think Juju probably saw a bit easier to pass coverage this past week, opening him up for a bigger week. But yeah, they spread the ball out in Pittsburgh. They look great. What was I gonna say? Okay, we can't go any further without talking about my favorite game of the season so far. Thomas's least favorite game of the season so far. Even Seahawks fans had fun watching that right up until the very end. That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, going into the game, as a Seahawks fan, it's going to be a nail biter. It doesn't matter how much better our team is than theirs. It's going to be a close game. And accepting that, it was a great game. It's just, unfortunately, this time it didn't end in our favor.
Seahawks, they put on such a show. I forget where I heard this, but I was listening to another podcast or watching a show, and apparently there was some Cardinals fan who was watching the game in overtime, sees the pass or the screen pass to DK Metcalf running it in, and is so pissed that he just turns the TV off, goes to bed, pissed. And he wakes up the next morning and is watching like press conference, and he sees Kyler Murray like smiling, and he's like, "What's he smiling about? Like, we lost the game, and it takes this long." After that, I don't know what triggers it, but he finally realizes, wait, we won the game. Because I think everyone thought that was the game ender.
Yeah.
It felt like there's lots of points where I thought it was the game ender, to be honest.
Yeah, that's definitely
what a whirlwind.
That's definitely a game you didn't want to turn off early.
I gained a huge respect, and he might be one of my favorite players in the league right now, for DK Metcalf, for chasing down who did the pick? Was it Buda Baker?
Buda Baker,
yeah. Chasing him down, man. Man, he was like light. He looked like Usain Bolt, just flying down the field and tackling him. I was like, man, respect. Like,
Dude,
what the effort? How
and it
fast
translated because the Cardinals didn't score any points on that drive. They got the ball back later with good field position, but that was crazy.
Yeah, that was a huge play. Man, I was like, I am a DK Metcalf fan. I doubted him, but after that, I'm like, all right.
The crazy
I
thing,
like this guy a lot.
Watching it was crazy, but then he was 15. Buda Baker had a 15-yard head start.
Yeah.
15 yards. Yeah. And here's the other thing. Buda Baker intercepts it. His momentum is that direction. DK Metcalf had to turn around, then gain 15 yards on him within the 90 yards that it was, and he did it. It was crazy.
You know what's crazy is if DK Metcalf's game-winning score had stood, he would have had the best offensive and defensive plays of the game.
And he should have, man. He should have.
I mean, Tyler Lockett,
but just that one play is more effort that the Cowboys defense have had all season.
Well, Tyler Lockett was playing out of his mind, though. Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson were the ones on offense having highlight reel after highlight reel with perfect passes from Russell Wilson. It was a thing of beauty to watch.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Russell Wilson played so well, and especially with Tyler Lockett, those 3 interceptions, looking at his stats for the season, don't bother me too much. Like, I think he's still the front runner in the MVP race. One of them was really bad on his part. I mean, that's the thing is, look at those beautiful deep balls those perfectly placed passes in the end zone to Tyler Lockett and other plays throughout the game, it kind of makes you forget about 3 interceptions, honestly.
Now, we've got to give some to the other side of the ball. Kyler Murray looked really good, and I think this is kind of his statement game where he's not a rookie anymore, and the Cardinals and Kyler Murray are legit, and they're huge contenders. Did you guys? My favorite play from Kyler Murray was the pass to DeAndre Hopkins. First of all, you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Were they all looking?
Yeah, where they were all looking.
That was intentional, right?
That was
like
such,
that was play design.
Oh,
yeah,
that's almost like a trick play. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it
Absolutely.
definitely was.
I thought that. I've heard other people say like I think the offense wasn't ready. I'm like, no, everyone
designed.
started the play when the ball was snapped.
Well,
but,
and
yeah.
you see Kyler Murray grinning afterwards because he's like,
that's what
dude, it worked.
Say.
Like
he sees DeAndre Hopkins single coverage with a step on the defender. The natural grin on his face. He's like, you gotta be kidding, man. It was hilarious.
I love it, man. Yeah, I'm really excited for this rivalry though for the next probably 10 years. Kyler Murray versus Russell Wilson, and then I know Larry Fitz is on his last year or so, but with DeAndre Hopkins,
big plays.
Yeah, and those receivers versus the Seahawks receivers, okay defense, but they're very opportunistic. The Cardinals were playing they were jumping on a lot of passes that they're like, we're not just going to play like soft coverage. We're going to play aggressive. We're going to go after those balls. And
that's what made those passes to Tyler Lockett so amazing. None of them were blown coverage. I mean,
yeah.
Patrick Peterson was all over Lockett that entire game, but every pass was unguardable.
Yeah.
It was. Well, guys,
this rivalry is going to be nuts.
Thursday Night Football is the rematch. Cardinals-Seahawks at Seattle.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, there's one thing I want to add on top of this, though. Obviously, I'm devastated by the game, and I'm really pissed off at the Cardinals, but I do want to point out how beautiful of a game it was in the sense that the reason Kyler Murray is in the league is because of Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson is the guy that opened the gate to smaller, scrambling, quick, fast running finesse quarterbacks that also have good
baseball
arms.
players.
Baseball players. Yeah. Like
exactly.
Literally, Kyler Murray is like the mini-me of Russell Wilson in the league.
Yeah.
So what better game for Kyler Murray to prove himself and his skill set and his leadership and his kind of jack of all trades play style than against Russell Wilson. Now, I think if the Seahawks actually had a decent pass rush, or actually like literally just had a pass rush, I think that game would have gone way different, because that's one thing. Like, the amount of pressure on Kyler Murray that game was, he didn't get sacked. I bet if you took like his average time of no pressure in the pocket compared to Russell Wilson's, it would be like an astronomical statistic difference.
Well, Russell Wilson got sacked one time as well. So really both quarterbacks had time to throw in that game, but that doesn't take away from your point.
Yeah,
that's obviously this.
Well, yeah, not taking away anything from either quarterback. When a quarterback is playing with almost no pass rush, it's like playing football on Madden easy mode from a quarterback standpoint. You know what I mean? It makes things a lot easier. But still, I think both teams played really good. They obviously both had pretty big mistakes, but it was a shootout, and Kyler Murray in the end completely proved his legitimacy in that game.
Man, and Kyler Murray, what he's doing, I mean, yeah, you're right. The comp there is incredible, but Kyler Murray has taken the running part of Russell Wilson's game to 11 out of 10.
For sure.
He is running. He's had a rushing touchdown every game this season. I think he's on pace to have over 1,000 rushing yards this season. So he's looking a lot like Lamar Jackson of last year. What I'm
I was going to say.
Last year's Lamar He's developing a lot faster.
Yeah.
He's developing a lot faster than Russell Wilson did. it took Russell Wilson a couple of years to get to the level he is right now. Obviously, they pulled the reins in on him a little bit when he was a rookie and early in his career, and they weren't sure what he could do. But Kyler Murray is like, and because of Russell Wilson, has started farther ahead than Russell Wilson did in his career. So he's catching up to him quick. It's as I was saying, it's going to be just an amazing rivalry watching those two play for the next few years. That's going to be one of those top rivalries.
That
probably of this decade of the 2020s.
And the NFC West right now with that loss for the Seattle Seahawks is anyone's division, though. I mean, it still feels like Seattle, even though they're, I mean, as far as wins, they have the same amount of wins as the Cardinals and the Rams, and the 49ers are just one loss behind them. But it's crazy. I mean, how do you feel about this, Austin? Like, the worst team in this division is not even close, so much better than the best team in your division. Like,
it's so sad. It's really sad.
And we can't dwell on it, but we gotta touch on the Cowboys. We gotta touch on.
If we gotta touch on one thing, it's gotta be the targeting on Dalton.
Well, that was just awful.
Yeah,
ugly.
But the more telling thing is nobody caring about it.
Yep. I guess they kind of checked to make sure she was all right, but
yeah,
kind of like what everyone else is saying, that was so blatantly bad.
Well, he got ejected, the player who did it, right?
He did, yeah. But no one fought for him, for Dalton. Like no one was like, "Hey, you all right, man? All right, get up." It's like it's terrible. And I think I was watching Undisputed, and Skip Bayless was like, I don't even care. I'm like, dude, it's the man's life. It's like it's the rivalry. I was like, dude, like the guy that could have been a career-ending injury. Had to, he got his helmet knocked off. Man, that concussion could, scar him for even the next O.J. Simpson after that hit. Like I was like, man, you gotta care, man. Like this is more than just a game.
Yeah, that was a bad. I mean, that was one of the most blatant low helmet first hits when Dalton was giving himself up that I've ever seen.
Yeah, he was well into his slide. He lowered his shoulder and his helmet. It was bad. And what was the point? They're up 22-3.
Yeah,
what do you?
That's as dumb as it gets.
Well,
you said all you can say.
If there's any lashback towards the NFL or the sport in general, or if they're become more changing rule changes, like game-changing rule changes, or if anything happens to the league because of safety and stuff like that, it's for crap like that.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? It's a penalty. They called it. They did all the right things. It was just a stupid.
Well, yeah, no, I agree
decision.
There. But it's players should not do that. Like, I don't know. Especially in their situation, like Austin said. What was the point of you doing that?
Well, I mean, the NFC East is just as exciting as the NFC West, but in the inverse, like, man, who's gonna win this thing? I called the football team to win. They're just as in it as
anybody. I think Dallas is officially out.
It feels like it. It really does.
Unless something drastically changes, I still like my pick for Philly to win. But I mean, yeah, Washington is just as much in it as they are.
It definitely feels like the Giants and the Cowboys are on the outside looking in, even though like I said,
they're only like a game back.
There's only no more than a game or a half a game in between any of these teams. So from feeling, from what we're seeing, it seems like to me that Washington and Philadelphia are in the front runners.
I think those teams can win the most out of division games. So, and that's what's going to matter in this case. But the Eagles-Giants game, we're going to talk about the NFC East. talking about a representation of the NFC East, of all the bad plays. If you're going to talk about the mistakes that are made in the Cardinals Seahawks game, but still good football, in a weird way, that's what the Eagles Giants game was. It was a ugly game, but also really exciting. Came down to the end. A missed 29-yard field goal. Daniel Jones tripping on his own feet.
Oh my gosh,
You know?
that's. Oh, would you rather be Daniel Jones this week or Todd Gurley this week?
I'd
Definitely
rather be
Todd
Daniel
Gurley.
Jones.
No, really?
Yeah.
I would rather be Daniel Jones.
But Todd Gurley scored the touchdown.
The reason is hey, I'm faster than Lamar. Like you get the bragging rights. Like, dude, I got a higher top speed than Lamar Jackson. How about that?
Seriously, my whole viewpoint on that game and that play completely changed when they put that stat out. Before I was like trash. Afterwards I was like, dang, that guy's got some legs, you know?
Daniel White
can't run
Jones.
correct without falling over, but yeah, I guess.
In the end, Daniel Jones's play was a net positive for his team. Todd Gurley's was not a net positive, just slight.
Yeah, even though he didn't score, they scored on that drive because of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just think it's more embarrassing. It's like, what would I rather have people see me mess up doing, accidentally getting in the end zone, or literally just tripping in the middle of the open field when it's a go-ahead touchdown?
It was pretty bad.
Pretty embarrassing. Well, yeah, I do think Philadelphia is a good pick, and I mean they have a great matchup this week against Dallas, which Dallas is making teams look good right now.
They're not winning that game. After what I saw against Washington, I didn't even watch the game.
You didn't watch?
I was like, no, no, I didn't. I was like, I didn't want to waste. I was like, I want to enjoy my Sunday today.
This is something that Thomas might not understand because he's a Seahawks fan. Sometimes your team sucks so bad that like just sitting there doing nothing would be better for you than having to watch that shiz out on the field.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt as well this week, watching Denver get obliterated by the Chiefs. And here's the thing, and maybe Austin feels this way too. Not saying yours wasn't as blatant, but like I went into this week like, yeah, we're going to lose. We're going to lose to the Chiefs. But I didn't want it to be the way it was. I didn't want us to lose on the final Chiefs drive to their backup quarterback, because why play your starters at this point? That sucks.
Yeah, that's disrespect.
That's
disrespect.
I don't blame him. Man. Are you kidding me?
No, I don't blame him either. I don't blame him either at all. But yeah, it does. It sucks, especially when you come off, beating the Patriots, and then you get blown out by the Chiefs, and then you watch the Patriots get annihilated by the Niners, and you're just like, oh well, that moral victory is kind of. We actually pick a team,
it's like great. The Patriots actually just suck.
Yeah.
But it's a double loss. It does feel good knowing that the Patriots suck. It really, really does. Because I kind of wondered, like, am I gonna hate the Patriots less because Tom Brady's not there? The answer is no. I hate the Patriots.
Yeah.
And they'll look good.
What would be cool though is if it is Tom wins a Super Bowl. Bill Belichick and the Patriots are average for 10 years. I'd much rather have that because Tom Brady, he has a much shorter lifespan than Belichick. So any dynasty you'd have with the Bucs is going to be extremely short-lived. And so it's like, at least, the Patriots aren't winning all the time, and we can have someone else bask in the glory a little bit. So
I know. It must feel great for Buffalo and Miami. Like, we get to, have a chance now. We get a real
Yeah.
shot. I feel good for them. The Jets are still a joke of the league, so they still suck. But otherwise, the AFC East is a lot more interesting than it was before.
How are we feeling about Cam now?
Have we heard the things he's saying? It
I
doesn't
mean,
sound
yeah,
like Cam feels that good about Cam.
yeah, exactly.
He's self-proclaimed like, yeah, if I play like that, I'm probably going to be benched forever. Like, kind of things you don't hear quarterbacks say. So
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, because I mean, when we first started this podcast, we were talking about Cam, and and I think we were all high on him. We're like, oh yeah, Cam's back, and
because that was right
he
after
never
they
even
almost beat
left.
the Seahawks. It
Yeah,
was a close
and there's
game.
no reason to not believe that, but they've won one game since then, and so like
Yeah.
now it's like, oh man, does now the question is, okay, is Bill Belichick actually need Tom, or is Cam actually that bad?
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, either way, it's Tom's victory. Like,
Yeah, it is.
I leave, you suck, and it would be different if Tom Brady left and the Patriots were bad, but Tom wasn't doing so good. But the fact that Tom Brady is playing really good and his team is maybe in the top 3 in the whole league, I mean, yeah, Bill Belichick's eating crow now. He's clearly losing that rivalry or that power struggle at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And does that? Who would you rather win that battle? For me, it's Brady.
Yeah.
Like for Brady to prove that it was him, because I think it's cooler to say that you like lived through watching the greatest player to ever play than the greatest coach to ever coach.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I think like Brady cementing himself as the Michael Jordan of the NFL is way cooler to have been a part of in history than to just be like, yeah, there was this coach, Bill Belichick, and he just was so much smarter than everybody else, and he won for 40 years. And I don't know. I think being able to like say that I watched Brady growing up,
Yeah. Look,
into my adulthood.
I'll say this, and I'll see what you guys think. Like, I'm glad you brought Michael Jordan because there's always been debates who's the best football player ever. Lots of people say Tom Brady, but it's kind of always been in football, it's so much different than basketball. There is no Michael Jordan. But in my mind, if Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl this year, he is football's Michael Jordan. Like, there isn't a soul. I mean, obviously, there could be players coming up in the future. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, we'll see what happens with Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or any of these players. But as far as like now, he is the best. And this is coming from the biggest Peyton Manning truther on this earth. There is no question if Tom Brady, there's already not much of a question, but there will be zero if Tom Brady wins this year that he's the best football player of all time.
Yeah, there's no debate on that. No debate. It's over.
I'd almost argue even if he were to win the Super Bowl this year, his track record is more impressive than Michael Jordan's, because Michael Jordan left the Bulls and didn't win a championship anywhere else like he did it. Well, he didn't win a championship anywhere else, not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing for me is like if Tom Brady does win, there's like no, everyone who wants to not admit Tom Brady's great is always, there's the go-tos. He's a system quarterback. It's all Bill Belichick. The Patriots system is so dominant. He's always been in the easiest division. All of that goes away completely if he takes the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl this year. Like, you cannot say any of it. And he does it when he's, what, is he 44 now? 43 or 44?
I think he's 43.
43.
And, yeah. Yeah. And with a coach who's never won a Super Bowl as a head coach.
Well, just how dysfunctional that team was altogether last year. I mean, his presence has literally flipped 180 that team's performance overall.
You want to talk about Tom Brady's presence when we were talking about the game where Tom Brady flipped out on his O-line. His O-line since that point, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I was looking it up previously. It's been one of the most effective offensive lines in the league throughout the season. One of the least penalized since then. So, Thomas, what you're talking about?
The penalties is a big thing. Honestly, just to kind of play around with this analogy you made, Parker, LeBron James is, I think Tom Brady's more comparable to him, where whatever team he goes to, that team all of a sudden becomes elite. And when he leaves teams, obviously LeBron's left a few more teams, but pretty much when LeBron left the Cavs, when he left the Heat, and then he left the Cavs again, those teams all, like, the next season plummet to, like, very deep lows. And obviously we haven't really seen it come to its full fruition, but the Patriots are definitely plummeting without him. So it's almost comparable in that way, where I personally, and we don't need to get into this, but I think LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan at this point for a lot of reasons.
That's for another podcast.
Basketball show,
But that's what I think. That's what I'm trying to say about Tom Brady, though, is it's perfectly evident and clear at the end of the season, if he wins the Super Bowl, that there's no one even close in the running.
Oh yeah, there wouldn't be. It's the most impressive career ever, and it's more impressive than Michael Jordan, and it's more impressive than LeBron if you even want to compare him to LeBron, because it's a lot harder to carry 22 guys or 53 guys than 12 guys or however many they have on an NBA roster. Like, yeah, because you'd have no control on defense. Like Michael Jordan could play defense and could stop other teams from scoring. Tom Brady cannot do that. And to carry a team like that.
It's the presence is huge. The presence is really huge.
Yeah. For sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if it's okay, going off kind of talking about if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, stuff like that. I want everyone's bold Super Bowl matchup predictions right now.
Matchup predictions?
Yep. I want to know who you think is going to the Super Bowl, Austin and Parker.
Wait, bold? Like, do I have to pick teams I don't?
Okay, not bold, but
just what's our Super Bowl
our legit picks.
Okay. Oh man.
Well, I'm gonna give a scenario. This isn't my pick, but I'm gonna give a scenario that I want. Is the team that I doubted, the Steelers, to play the team Parker doubted, the Bucks, to play in the Super Bowl. Big Ben versus Tom Brady in a classic matchup, and Brady winning, just so that the team that I picked originally beats the team Parker picked originally, and Brady cements himself as the best.
I could see it.
So that's what you go with. One, okay.
That's what you want. I'm gonna go with Packers Titans in the Super Bowl. And in that game, I would see the Titans getting what I think at that point would probably be what's the consensus upset win. At that point, just kind of, I think the Titans have a superior defense in that matchup, and I could see Derrick Henry running for 150 yards, getting Super Bowl MVP. So that's my pick here in Week 8.
All right, I can agree with that. I think if the Titans can recreate the playoff run they had last year, they have a really, really good chance of making even further than they did.
What about you, Thomas?
Okay, I'm just, for the sake of having some variety, I definitely can see both of yours happening. I honestly think it's going to be...
Just do it. We know you want to say Seattle. Just say
it.
Just
okay, if I were being Austin, yes. I want to see Seattle and, Chiefs or something. But I honestly think... Yeah, who wouldn't? I think it's going to be... Out of the AFC, the only reason I think that it's going to be the Chiefs is I think they're division is a lot more competitive than the Steelers is. Like, I think they just they're way more likely to get a first round bye in the playoffs.
Oh, you mean the Steelers division is more competitive than the Chiefs division?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
the
Okay.
Chiefs are
Good.
gonna have an easy. Did I mix myself up? Sorry.
It sounded like you're saying the opposite, but okay.
Okay, yeah, no. I think the Chiefs division, they're way more likely to get a first round bye just looking at their division matchups.
I can see that. Yeah.
And then out of the NFC, I think the Bucks look pretty good. So I'm gonna go Buccaneers, Chiefs.
Just to let you know, Thomas, I was teeter-tottering. I'm thinking Seattle or Green Bay, and that's my NFC Championship preview.
Yeah.
Is Seattle
Well,
Green Bay?
The only thing that makes me nervous about Seattle is their lack of pass rush.
No team's perfect. Every team has some weakness. I
Yeah,
think
no,
if
I
any
agree.
team can overcome it, it's Russell Wilson and the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think where they are now, they're going to get deep into the playoffs. But there's a week left in the trade window. If they could get something pass rush, I think their likelihood, in my opinion, and probably statistically, I think it's going to go way up.
What are you gonna say, Austin?
Of those three teams of the NFC, Seahawks, Packers, Bucks, I think the Packers are actually probably the least likely to make it. Yeah.
Based on that bad loss to the Buccaneers?
Yeah.
Well,
I
what's their
think-
schedule, too?
I think they match up too poorly with more teams than the Seattle and the Bucks do. I can see if the 49ers make it in as a wild card, which they have a really good chance of doing, they'd get beat up by them. I think the Rams would beat up on Green Bay head to head. I think Green Bay's better team than the Rams, can beat more teams, but I don't think they match up very well against the Rams.
Oh, yeah.
It's a toss up between them and Seattle if they were to play head to head. We obviously saw what happened with Tampa Bay versus Green Bay, and I think if they played again, the same thing would happen. So I think the Packers just don't. They have less favorable matchups than Seattle and Tampa Bay do. Not to say that they're not a worse team than either one of them, but I don't know. That's just my opinion, man.
All right. I just thought of a fun little game we can play. All right. And I don't know how we're doing on time. This may be one of our last little things, but I feel like it's good for week 8. We still got lots of teams kind of on the edge, and Austin threw out a lot of these names. So I want to play Contender or Pretender. All right. I'm going to go through lots of the, teams on the cuff. I want to start off with like the go-to, at least in my opinion, the go-to question. After this week, Chicago Bears, Contender or Pretender?
Pretender.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, we've all been kind of saying it.
They're just a team with a really good defense, but a really bad offense.
They just don't have enough.
Yeah.
Okay, which leads me to San Francisco 49ers, Contender, Pretender?
Contender.
I'm going to say Pretender.
I'm going to say Pretender as well for the same reason. Actually, I think they have a worse defense than the Bears, and their offense, it's a very opportunistic offense. It's not a reliable thing. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a reliable quarterback. I would definitely, for those reasons, say Pretender in my mind.
It's very coaching reliant and not enough talent. Kyle Shanahan's system works really well. Their zone blocking scheme with the running game, they can plug in running backs, but there's just not enough talent on offense, and they're banged up on defense still. And yeah, it's not as good as the Bears. I think they're Pretenders as well.
I think they're Contenders in the sense that they're just probably going to get healthier and get a lot of their injured players back as the season goes on. I don't think they're contenders for playoffs because they're in by far the most competitive division in football right now. If they were in another division, I think they could easily
They could
lead
win.
some
They could
divisions.
win. They could win the NFC East,
Yeah,
but that doesn't
exactly.
make them. That doesn't make them contender. Like they make the playoffs and they're one and done, just like any other NFC East team.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
New Orleans Saints, contenders or pretenders?
I'm third time in a row pretenders.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with pretender too.
I'm I'm gonna go with contender. Um, it's tough for me. I still think Drew Brees, he's not done yet. And my gosh, are they ever gonna get Michael Thomas back? It's every week it's something new. He had the original injury, then he missed a game because he punched his teammate in practice, and it was disciplinary. And then he got injured, a completely separate injury in practice, and that's kept him out the last week, and I think is projected to keep him out this week. So I'm sticking with what I said. When you lose the league leader in receiving yards, you're not going to look the same. And they're still 4-2 without Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
They're winning a lot of close games, which is a good sign. I just think that they as well just it's actually kind of different. They have the talent. I don't know. I'm just not a believer in Drew Brees. Yeah. So I think it just comes down to that.
Yeah, I think Drew Brees is a great quarterback, and I think he's accomplished a lot in his career. But just scoping in on this season, it hasn't been impressive enough for them to. Well, that and then all the other issues they've had. But another big thing is their defense has been so talented and good over the last few years. But I think they're pretty unsplendourly this year compared to what they should be. And I'm not
Hold
saying
up.
they're bad,
Hold
but
up.
They're
I'm
good.
looking up that word. Unsplendourly.
it's definitely not. It's not a real word, but
I liked it, though. I liked it. It really described the feeling. And I agree with it. To a sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
they should be a good defense, and I'm not saying they don't have awesome defensive plays. It's just I had higher expectations for them coming into the season.
I guess my bar is, can I see them in the Super Bowl? I can't.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, pretender or pretender? Cleveland Browns.
They're also pretenders.
Man, pretenders.
I can admit I'm wrong on them I picked before.
Really hard for me. I'm gonna say contender. I don't feel good about it, but I'm gonna say contender. Oh, but actually, you guys want us? All right, here we'll talk about our picks. But I've been looking at these teams and looking at their point differential overall. First of all, I mean, this might not be that hard, but who do you guys think has the worst point differential? And that, to clarify for those listening at home, is the difference between the points scored and the points scored on them. Who do you think has the worst in the league?
Out of the teams we've just discussed, or
No, the entire league, the NFL.
Shoot.
Don't think too hard about it. I'll give you that.
Is it the Bengals?
No, not even. No, I'll give you a hint. It's not even close to the team that it is. Thomas, do you want to make a guess, or should I just reveal it?
let me make a guess. It probably won't be right.
No. Okay. Look, what team sucks really bad? I'll say that.
The Jets.
Well, that really narrows it
Okay.
down.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it. It's the Jets. The Jets. Their point differential negative 118.
Wow.
They've had
that's
118 more points scored on them, so pretty bad. In second place, though. Wait, double checking. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's no. Sorry, it's. Oh, it is by 1 point against the third worst is Dallas Cowboys. negative 67 point differential, but right next to them, the Jaguars, negative 66. Sorry.
Okay.
But the reason why I bring this stat up to you guys is usually teams that are 5-2 have a positive point differential, but the Browns are negative 21 point differential, and they're 5-2. So
Because they got pummeled by the Ravens and pummeled by the Steelers, and they're barely beating the Bengals twice. Barely beating who they play, Indy. Yeah, barely beating the Cowboys.
Is it too late to change my pick to Pretender? No,
I honestly feel like we could reapproach that conversation and make new picks if we wanted to, though.
No, but that being said, I'm not gonna tell. I actually do think they can be contenders. Again, that being said, okay. I should preface this. I haven't been saying it like Austin, where I see them in the Super Bowl. I guess my baseline was like I can see them making noise in the playoffs, making a run at it, not necessarily getting to the big game.
Was that our pick from that? Wait, because when I made the pick of the Browns, I wasn't saying Super Bowl. I was like AFC Championship game. I can see them making it that.
No. I'm talking about when you're saying what you pretender or what you consider a contender.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying my bar's a little lower than yours. That's
okay.
All.
Okay.
But again, like I said, we know the Browns' offense is a run-first offense, and they lost their top running back, Nick Chubb. And they're still doing pretty good. They're still 5-2 without Nick Chubb. So if they were floundering without him, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. The fact that they're still competitive and he is going to come back, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they are contenders, but they need Baker Mayfield to play more like he played this week, not like how he played 2 weeks ago. And they did just lose OBJ, which we'll see how much that impacts them, but that's something to consider.
I think what you just said is exactly why I think they're pretenders. I think the only way they were going to be competitive or a contender is by relying on their running game between Chubb and Hunt.
Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every player that they lose that's a key part of their offense makes them more reliant on Baker Mayfield. And you can't be a contender when you're relying on Baker Mayfield. And I'm not saying they're still relying a lot on Hunt's running game, their running game in general, but every player they're losing is making them more reliant on Baker. And yeah, he played fantastic. He played fantastic against the Bengals. Whoop-de-doo. Any actual contender, that guy absolutely sucks. And don't get me wrong, he's a good quarterback. I think he's good enough to play in the NFL. But only when he's playing against teams like the Bengals.
All right. Indianapolis Colts, contenders or pretenders?
Contenders.
That's one tough for them.
I want to say before Austin, so I'm not contrarian, depending on what he says. I'm saying pretenders.
Okay.
Because the last 3 picks you guys have said, so I'm saying the other thing.
Yeah.
I'm not meaning to do that.
Okay. Yeah. No, well, I'm going to say pretenders again because my bar is so high. But I don't even see them getting into a championship game. So, yeah.
Yeah. This one for me, it's kind of your guys' opinion about the Saints, whereas I have more faith in Drew Brees, I don't have that in Philip Rivers, even though they're kind of looking like they're both taking the same sort of downward trajectory in ways this season, but I have more faith in Drew Brees to get on track than I do with Philip Rivers and a new team and a new system. So yeah, I'm going to go with pretender on that one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, Philip Rivers. They've got a lot of good things going for him. yeah, we'll have to see what they do from here. But I like the Colts.
They're just an off-brand Titans. They're just Walmart brand Titans.
Yeah.
Well,
It's weird. It's weird seeing Phillip Rivers in a Colt uniform. It's probably actually weirder than seeing like Tom Brady in a Buccaneer uniform. It's I don't know. Like it's like going from the Peyton Manning Colts to the Andrew Luck Colts, and then now seeing a Phillip Rivers led Colts. It's like, all right, so I don't even know what these Colts are. Like before, I knew like Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, carrying the team, throwing it everywhere. Phillip Rivers, I'm like, what is this football team? I don't even know. I don't recognize it. It's like going to another planet where Phillip Rivers is the quarterback of the Colts.
Yeah. Thomas, make your case.
Yeah, my case is when you take Phillip Rivers at face value, he's obviously not the best quarterback, especially in his division. But he can win games. He has before on the Chargers, and the defense is extremely talented. So I think they can make it far. I think they can make it into the playoffs. I think Phillip Rivers' curse is having just giving the ball to the other team at the worst times. But at this point, he has a defense that he can trust more than any other defense he's had. So I think their defense can kind of make up for the mistakes or the luggage that come along with Phillip Rivers. But they're 4-2, second in their division. I think they could easily, mostly based on their defense, make it into the playoffs. At that point, Phillip Rivers has a lot of experience. They're a pretty well-rounded team. I think they could, they're capable as much as anyone else.
Last one. Contenders or pretenders? Las Vegas Raiders. All right, I need to answer first.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna say this might be the hardest one, maybe. I'm gonna go pretender.
All right.
Tough.
Well, this is weird because this is the team with the lowest record that you've listed, but I think they're contenders. I can see them in a Super Bowl. I can see them stumbling into a Super Bowl.
That's how it would feel if they did.
Yeah.
We keep talking about how it feels like they're just fumbling their way to.
That's the Raiders' way, man. That's the Raiders' way.
Aguilar, look out! Whoa, it happened! Oh, wow, crazy! I don't know. But they're.
Yeah.
No, okay, never mind. I was about to start making an argument for the point I didn't take. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
So when you say contender, Austin, did you say Thomas?
I'm going with contender.
Okay.
That was his OG pick.
Here, I'm sticking to it. Here, mainly based
I don't like
on
my pick.
Look at the rest of their schedule.
Wait, before you say anything else, I officially changed. I'm saying contender. I changed my mind. I was like right on the edge.
He reserves the right.
I reserve the right. I have one mulligan in this game.
Yeah, this
Everyone
is your game,
does.
man. I guess your game, your rules.
That's right.
So week 8 they play the Browns. Week 9 they play the Chargers. Week 10 they play the Broncos. Week 11 they play the Chiefs. They've already beat the Chiefs. I don't think they'll beat them again. Then they play the Falcons. Then they play the Jets. Then they play the Colts. Then they play the Chargers. Then they play the Dolphins. Then they play the Broncos again. I honestly think there's only one game out of the rest of their schedule that I guarantee. Well, no, maybe. Yeah, no.
I mean, they won once.
They won. Really, the only game I would be worried about for them is the Chiefs. But they've also proved that they can beat them before. So I think there's a definite chance they make it into the playoffs with the wild card. Probably more than anyone else in the AFC, and they are a well-rounded team. Derek Carr has been performing super well under pressure. I think they could definitely make some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, what convinced me to come over is just thinking about their losses. I mean, yeah, they had a bad loss this week to the Buccaneers, but we all think the Buccaneers are
Yeah,
legit.
exactly.
So, I mean, if you're going to have a bad loss, it ought to be to a team like that. And they lost to the Bills, and the Bills have been on a little bit of a skid, but at the time they were still playing great football. And the same thing can be said about their loss to the Patriots, fresh off of the Patriots' competitive game with the Seahawks. They've had their losses haven't been that bad. I mean, this last week probably what I say is the worst. The fact that they weren't really competitive in that game, but they've had some good wins. So that's what caused me to flip flop to Contender.
Yeah, they can really step up when they play good teams. They're a well balanced team. It's just not as it's not at the talent level of a Kansas City or a Pittsburgh, but they don't have a gaping hole on their team. Like that's just bad where it's like you can really take advantage of it. They're solid everywhere. Not spectacular, but solid.
Yeah,
And I think that helps in playoff football.
for sure.
I'd agree. I'd say the thing about the Raiders that makes them kind of iffy is it feels like they need a lot of things to work that aren't so guaranteed to always work to win games. Like they need Derek Carr to be on his game, which he can do, but he's not super consistent. They need the running game to go, which we've seen in bursts, but other games it's really stalled. So I think that's,
Yeah.
in my mind, what holds this team back.
I think, but that's also the point I'm trying to make where they've gotten all those hard games out of the way. So I think they're going to have a pretty good record at the end of the season. But yeah, to go with your argument, Parker, in the playoffs, it's almost like a season reset. They would need Derek Carr to be on point every game.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
Speaking of the Bills, Parker.
Oh no! Stop.
I just love how every week that goes by, I just think your argument for it's aging really well, Parker.
Wait, the Bills won. What are you talking about?
They didn't score a touchdown against the Jets.
You don't need to score a touchdown on the Jets. They knew that. I mean, come on. It's the Jets. Just let them do their thing. They'll lose the game themselves.
Hey, all I'm saying is I really wish I had the Bills kicker on my league, my fantasy team this week.
The Bills really embraced for them, they have 3 bye weeks, and this was their first. They haven't had their actual bye, have they? I don't know.
Well, they had to. Oh, I don't know when they're bye. I forgot that they just moved the Titans game, but yeah, I don't know. It feels like since they got, their butts handed to them by the Titans, they just kind of, and granted they played the Chiefs next. I don't know, man. You'd think they'd bounce back and, just like pummel the Jets to like, hey, we got to like establish ourselves again. But they couldn't. They were down 10-0 at one point to the Jets, and then they just kicked a bunch of field goals to win. It wasn't Josh Allen that won the game, and I think Josh Allen has fallen pretty far in the MVP race, if he's even in it anymore.
I wouldn't say he is. I think Justin Herbert's more in the MVP race than Josh Allen at this point.
I think this week Kyler Murray inserted himself more in the race than Josh Allen is. So yeah, I mean we've all eaten some humble pie this week. So again, I'm not. This isn't me saying I still don't think Josh Allen can't. I still think I've seen enough to think he is going to be great. But as of week 8 in the 2020 season, he is not there yet. He needs. There's a lot of growing that needs to happen, no doubt, and there's no denying it.
I've actually thought about your argument on who will, at the end of their careers, will regard as better. And I think in order for Josh Allen to be remembered as better than Lamar Jackson is that he would have to like win more Super Bowls, because Josh Allen is kind of like a guy we've seen before, like big arm guy, can move a little bit, whereas Lamar Jackson has a luxury of like being compared to like just a few others that came before him. Like he's compared to Michael Vick, who was revolutionary, and other past quarterbacks like Randall Cunningham, Warren Moon type stuff. I think he, like, stylistically will remember Lamar Jackson more if none of them win a Super Bowl and they both go, one and done or don't make far runs in the playoffs. I think in order for Josh Allen to establish himself as the quarterback that'll be remembered in history more than Lamar Jackson, was that he would have to win a championship, and Lamar can't.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I mean, it's so early. Hopefully, we all hope that these quarterbacks are going to have long careers, and we've just barely seen the beginning of them.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Okay. All right. After that, okay, Bills, yes, they're not where I was hoping they'd be. They're still leading the division, so they still have every chance, every opportunity to right the ship and get good. So I'm not going to raise the alarm yet, but they do need to correct course, no doubt. But I was going to do bonus round of Contender or Pretender NFC West edition. In this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 2 teams, and we each have to pick a contender or a pretender. Even if you think both are pretenders or contenders, you're just basically picking which one
is better.
You see better.
Okay.
And I'm doing Cardinals and Rams. Which is the contender? Which is the imposter? The Among Us imposter.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Austin.
I think I know. Well, I don't want to base it off of what I think you guys are going to say, but I honestly think, and I think Jared Goff's biggest defender on our podcast, but even putting Jared Goff aside, the Rams are a better overall team than the Cardinals, and I think the Cardinals are more of an imposter than LA.
All right. I'll say I'm going with Cardinals as the contender, and LA is the imposter. I just feel like I've seen, they've had similar schedules. Both have had the luxury of playing Dallas. But I'm more. It comes down to me. I'm more inspired by Kyler Murray's play on the field than Jared Goff's. I believe more with the game on the line, or in the face of a tough matchup like Seattle or Green Bay or some of these big teams in the league. I can see Kyler Murray putting the team on his back and making the plays to get in and win those tough games. Jared Goff, I've been one of his biggest detractors. I just don't think he has what it takes in my mind to be that guy when they need it most. He's shown spots, he's done it here and there, but I don't trust him when the game's on the line more than I trust Kyler Murray. So I'm going to go with Arizona.
Okay. For me, I think it really just comes down to who's going to have a better record. I think Seahawks win the division. So these 2 teams are just playing for a wild card. And I think this is a hard one because I think it can go either way. But I think I'm going to have to go with the Rams. Because
man.
here's my reason why. I definitely am on Austin's side, where I think Jared Goff is good enough to win games and be in a Super Bowl. I definitely don't think he's the best. I think Kyler Murray is a much more impressive quarterback, but I think, kind of like Austin said, overall the Rams are a more talented team. Their defense is incredible, and they played incredible this last week. But as well, is I've seen it in a couple games now, but of course I saw it in the game the other night against the Seahawks. When Kyler Murray has a spy on him, it kind of shuts down his finesse, running. Not 100% shuts it down, but it limits his potential in games. So his teams figure that out, and they put spies on him, especially on crucial plays, on third downs and stuff like that. I think that that can really, with Kyler Murray out, the Cardinals' overall talent is really limited. Where I think just the Rams have enough talent on their team. They'll have a better record. They are more likely to get a wild card and actually be in the playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, not even the spy. The strategy that the Rams would do head-to-head against Arizona is to play contain. You just have the defensive ends don't even rush. They keep Kyler Murray in a box, and their offensive line isn't good enough to block Aaron Donald.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
as long as Kyler Murray doesn't get the edge, and you can get a good pass rush up the middle, occasionally blitzing the middle linebacker, Kyler Murray's gonna have a hard time. And I don't want to bring in his height, but I mean, if as long as the defensive ends just stay and keep him in the box and don't let him get out on the edge, you don't even have to have a spy. You can stop Kyler Murray in that case, and I think
I agree. That is got to be the formula, because I wasn't gonna bring a counter to you, Thomas, but I don't think you can count on one hand the number of spies they can put on Kyler Murray that when Kyler starts running are going to be able to stop him, because he's the fastest player behind center since Michael Vick that I think I've ever seen. He's so fast, and he can get the edge so incredibly quick. So yeah, containment would be the strategy there. But I think Kyler Murray's too proficient, too accurate in the throwing game. I think if you're going to dedicate that many players to contain or have a dedicated spy, he'll find the open man.
And, I agree. I think Kyler Murray is an incredible quarterback, and I'm not saying a spy is going to completely shut him down, but when the Seahawks put a spy on him the other night, he didn't even try and run anymore. So I just think he's not going to have the tendency to make those decisions to run it when he has a spy. He only takes those runs when he's got a wide open gap and a lot of field to run. Of course.
And then he throws it and wins the game.
Yeah, no. I still think he's going to perform very well, but I think there are ways to stop him or suppress his game. And especially like Austin said, it's a good point. It really comes down to the matchups between those two teams and who wins those face-offs between them, and I think the Rams will.
The NFC West's biggest opponents are all each other. Yeah. I mean, every game that's not them, for the most part, is going to be easier. So it's, one exciting division.
Which is why the game on Sunday sucked.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think of the game? Was that fun? Was that a fun little...
That was a fun game.
I like Contenders and Pretenders.
I had fun with that. I felt like we learned something. About each other, about ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all she wrote. We're out of time for today. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting us, you wonderful viewers, listeners, maybe viewers, if we can get some stuff on YouTube. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave 5-star ratings. Anything you can do to help support helps us out quite a bit. Thanks. Have a good night.
Later.